Hi, loves. Today I want to talk about unapologetic expression and disrupting conformity. You know, some of you who are new to me might think that I've always been a bit this way, or that I've always had this way of speaking about my truth and being unapologetic about who I am and all of that. But there was a journey to get here. And so I want to share a bit about that with you. Today is really about who are you? It's really this discovery of how can we dismantle all of the systems that we've plugged into to really understand who we are, right? So in my childhood and through a big part of my life, I was a bit of a chameleon. And this is in large part because I actually have, if you know anything about human design, I have a completely open G center or identity center in human design, which means that I will be constantly seeking who I am. And so this has been a naturally a big part of my journey, right? So as a child, all I wanted to do was fit in. And so I did everything I could, not to just fit in, but also to escape being too big to be seen, right? For example, I remember being in spelling bees when I was a kid, and I was really good at spelling. I still am really good at spelling. And I hated the attention that it brought to me. In high school, I was in honors classes, you know, and a part of me just wanted to be in the regular kids' classes, you know. I just wanted to fit in. Also, there was a part of me as a child who, for example, rejected church. I rejected religion from a very young age, and not because I don't believe in something, but because I really felt that showing up in that space, it was this just constant shaming of who I was. And it didn't resonate with me as a kid, right? So there was this interesting dynamic between this part of me that was like, no, I'm not going to plug into these systems that aren't me and don't feel like me and don't feel good to me. And then there was this other part of me that was just dying to fit in with everyone else. So that was a bit about my childhood. Also, I will say, like, when I got into my teenage years, I would, like when I was mad at my parents or I needed to express anger, I would have these outbursts and then I would run away. So I would like scream something at them and then I would just haul ass away. And that was, I mean, if that doesn't show like tempered expression, I don't know what does, but, so there was a bit of that as well. Now, fast forward, I go into corporate. Corporate was home to me. It was a space that I thought, this is where I'm going to find out who I am. This is where I'm going to find out my place in this world. I come from two hardworking parents that demonstrated good work ethic to me. And so that was my life. You know, I got into working as young as I could in high school. And so in the beginning, I put my head down and all I did was, you know, try to figure out like, how do I fit into this space? How can I conform and fit in here, right? And then I started to tap into more of who I am, right? So what ended up happening for me is that I started experiencing a lot of anxiety from my suppression of emotions, right? The suppressing of who I am, how I want to speak, who I want to be. And that led me down my journey in personal development, 13 years ago. So I started in therapy to unravel my anxiety and really understand who am I and what do I want in this world? What do I actually crave in this world? What are my desires? What do I want to ask for? What do I want to do in my life? And how am I serving myself? Because this was something that I was not used to doing. It was, how can I fit in and serve everyone around me, right? And so as I started unraveling all this and the emotions really started coming through me, instead of being suppressed, I started feeling shame around being an emotional leader. I also got feedback in corporate that I don't understand how my behavior affects others. So when I would say things that were very true to me, even if I was at a space in my journey that maybe they didn't come out very nicely, I still needed that expression, right, in order to heal. In order to heal our expression and who we are and how we're being in the world, we have to get through that layer of the unexpressed. It has to come out. And in that piece, in that transition, it's not always beautiful. Meaning to others, it doesn't always look super clean and perfect to them. But for us who are learning to express ourselves and who are learning to say what we mean and to say what we feel, it's a big deal. And so I continued those little outbursts and then sort of running. Now I didn't run, right? Because I was in these rooms and I would say something in the middle of a meeting with sometimes hundreds of people on that meeting that I felt needed to be said. It was the elephant in the room. It needed to be said. And it's so funny, like, that this is where part of the I don't understand how my behavior affects others came through. And also, I also had a lot of people come up to me after the fact and they would say, like, I am so glad that you said that thing. I am so glad that you said that. Everyone was thinking it in the room and everybody was afraid to say it. And that's part of, again, human design, my undefined throat. It allows me that gift to sense the energy of what just needs to be said and expressed. So along that journey, I started to learn to ask for what I wanted. I started leading in I was on the steering committee for a women's group. This is when diversity was all the rage in corporate. And so I got on the steering committee of this diversity group, all about women empowerment. And there was this part of me, again, that with expression, so much of me wants to express truth. Like, I am a truth hunter in this world. And so I never wanted what I wanted to say to be about because I was a woman, right? And so that was a really interesting line that I got to walk, right? Even like as I got into leadership, right? Like, I didn't want to say things because I was a leader. So I tended to be that leader that was super transparent, more transparent than a lot of the other leaders wanted me to be in some cases. I played in a lot of rooms where I felt really small, where I was surrounded by leaders who'd been doing it for a while. So despite the fact that I was told I didn't understand how my behavior affected others, I was put into spaces of tremendous growth and invited in because I'm a disruptor, because I don't conform to what everyone else does, because I challenge things, and because I ask, why are we doing it that way? And all of these things led me into expression, right? Led me into really understanding, who am I and what do I care about, right? Disruption, like being a disruptor and saying, like, I don't want to conform, isn't just about disrupting and being in this place of like, how can I like create chaos? It's not what that is, right? Disruption is more, it's an honoring of change. It's an honoring of, like, if we want to evolve as humans, we need to be able to accept difference. That's all disruption is, difference. And what if we saw it that way? What if we saw it as this space of, like, I can receive differences and still hold my energy? To me, that's freedom of expression. What else do I want to say about corporate? I have a couple notes over here. My role out of corporate, or my journey out of corporate, was really about like breaking out of the boxes that I felt that I was put in, right? So it was really like, creating my own boxes in corporate. For those of you that are still working in that world, right? How can I create a space that feels good and true to me while honoring the culture of the company too, right? How can I contribute to this environment while still honoring who I am? And I think we lose a lot of that in corporate because at least when I was there, I got out in 2019, so I will say that. When I was there, it was a lot of like, what is your role here and how do you fit in? But there wasn't a lot of like leeway outside the box. It was a lot of like, let me put you in this box and then you stay there, right? And so I tended to create a lot of my own boxes. You know, I'm going to take a little bit of this and this and this and this role and put it all together into the role that I want to be in, the role where I feel expressed, the role where I feel like I'm able to bring my gifts to this space. And at the end, I had two positions. I had two roles for two different companies that were built for me. They were completely built around me. So all of these years for fighting for, like, this is what I want, this is what I desire. You know, what if we did it this way? Like all of that turned into these two companies that wanted to create a role just for me, that wanted to invite in change, that wanted me to come in and help them shake things up that they've been doing for 30 years. I felt so seen. I felt like there's another side of this. Like I get to be who I am and people will receive me. Another thing that I will say here too, for anyone who is still in corporate, it's really powerful when you can show up for a job role. If you're interviewing, when you can show up in that space unapologetically yourself, when you can show up and say, this is who I am and this is what I contribute, this is what turns me off, this is my plan, that's super powerful. And it's recognized. It's recognized as leadership, it's recognized as confidence. And what's coming through right now actually is entitlement, which is so funny because another thing that I remember studying in corporate was this whole like generational, all these generations coming up, right? I'm a little bit stuffy today, so pardon my sniffles. All of this generational work and these different generations coming through, right? The baby boomers retiring, these millennials coming in, and there was this whole thing about millennials being entitled and all of that stuff. And I'm actually a Gen X, I think it is. I think I'm a Gen Xer, born in 1980. So I think I was right at the cusp of Gen X and millennial. But there's a way that entitlement is very different. Like entitlement, and I will also say that it's not really fair to stigmatize an entire generation, right, for being certain ways, right? And also, there's a difference, right? There's a difference between showing up to a space and feeling entitled and another way of showing up and saying, I actually understand who I am and what value I bring to this space, and here's what that is. Does that fit with you or not? That's powerful. So I just wanted to add that in there. So now back to the roles that were created for me on my way out of corporate. As I said, I felt so seen. I showed up in those spaces just like I said there. I was on my way. I got my first coaching certification in the second role. And I had told them I really only want to be here for about a year. And then I want to phase out into part-time and then go into entrepreneurship. I want to start my company. I'm ready. And I could show up unapologetically in those spaces in that way. And that felt really good to me. And it was received well. And then it wasn't. And then it came down as, like, we want you here. This is what we need. Yes, like, do all the things. And then it was rejected. And then it was, we're not ready for this. You know, the partners can't align with what you're doing, so it's not going to work here. You know, so it was this invitation. I got a taste of like what it would feel like to step into a role and be all of me. And then the rejection, right? And those were hard. It was hard for me to feel that. It was hard for me to feel like I've had this very successful corporate run. And then to be invited into a space where I can be expressed and then rejected for that expression, it was hard, you know? Stepping into who we are and expressing ourselves unapologetically doesn't mean that we can't get hurt along the way. You know? So now moving into entrepreneurship. Now in the entrepreneurial world, you get told in order to succeed, you need to do X. Right? So it's another space that's trying to put everyone into a box based on what you do. And these are all things, like these systems that we are surrounded by in this world were created for a reason, right? They were created for survival. And yet, we still get to plug into who we are and understand, does this system fit for me? That's the journey. The journey is so much about like, how can I take in my surroundings and decide if it's congruent for me? Does this work for me? Is this who I am? Does this align with who I am? That's where we have our own sovereignty. That's where we get to plug in, right? So entrepreneurship has been another wild ride of now I have all this freedom. Now I get to express myself and be whoever I want to be. But now I'm facing with these norms that say if I'm not this, then I can't succeed in what I do. If I don't post on social media every day and trick the algorithm or whatever, if I don't force myself to show up in these spaces, then people aren't going to see me and people aren't going to find me. I won't be successful. So then I had to go through another round of really unraveling. What does it look like to create a business that is fully expressed in who I am? What does that look like? Because now there are no rules. There's only me. Of course, there's, certain laws, and I have an LLC and taxes and all that, of course, right? But as far as the way that I decide to run my business, ethically, I get to show up and express that. I get to market that. I get to talk about it. I get to be me in that. And trust that the people who are meant for me will find me if I do that. So much of my journey, like in the beginning of my journey, was all about chasing the things externally to find who I was, right? The job, the house, the relationship, whatever. Now my journey is more in. Now it's like, how can I create this harmony inside of me? And then let the external things land. So it's shifted for me. And in doing so, it's allowed me to show up in the world knowing who I am. And being able to make super lightning fast decisions intuitively because I have this sense and connection of who I am. I don't need to plug in to your system. I don't need to plug into your thoughts and the way that you think about things because I know what I think. I can listen to what you have to say and be open about that, but I have the power of discernment within me. That's freedom of expression. All of these things, my whole journey taught me who I wasn't, so that I could so clearly see who I am. That's what it is. It's an unraveling. It's removing all the things that stop us from seeing who we are. And when we step into that freedom of expression, it's not only this permission of freedom for ourselves, it's permission for others. If they're open. It's so interesting. Like, watch yourself when you're in a space with somebody who says something that you just do not believe in and you are adamant about it. Can you actually hold space for them to be in that expression and understand that this is where they are? This is their expression, and it doesn't have to be yours. Freedom of expression is freedom, right? And I want you to think also about, like, even I took this class in college called intercultural communication. And one of the things that was taught there was silence is acceptance. So if we don't say something back to somebody who's saying something disruptive, you know, whether that was, and it was intercultural communication, so it was a lot about like racism and stereotypes and stuff like that. When somebody's saying something like that, if we don't say something back, then it's acceptance. It's showing that we accept it, right? But I want to challenge that. Because first of all, where we put our energy matters. What we focus on expands. So if we focus on fighting the beliefs that we don't actually believe in, what does that do? It gives energy and fuel to those beliefs. But if we hold space for what is true for us and we walk that in the world, that matters. That's where we get to infuse the energy that is our truth, that we believe in, into the world without needing or allowing others to validate us or needing to dispute others who don't believe the same thing. We can hold that space. We can witness when you're confident in who you are and what you believe in. We can hold space and witness someone else and their expression without getting immersed in it, without needing to have to change them or convince them otherwise, without needing them to validate that what we believe is true. There's so much power in that witnessing. There's so much power in it. And when people see you convicted in your truth and who you are and what you believe in, they want that too. Because that energy can shift a room without needing it to. There's no attachment there. But it's a light that we shine within that invites others to do the same. That's what that does. That confidence comes when you know who you are. That's where confidence comes from. All right, I'm going to stop there. I would love to know if there's anything that this brought up for you. If you have any questions, thoughts, things that you want to express, I invite them here. And I'll be back next week.